6 o'clock showing now, so I guess we'll call the meeting to order. And looks like everybody's present. We're in flights.
There's a place for this, but I was wondering if we could add something regarding our COVID quarantine practices.
Okay. Make that item 8.
Is that agreeable? Well, I guess you can vote on it.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. We'll just add that as item number 8 under the action discussion items. So I'd need a motion to approve the amended agenda. Ken? And John, second. All those in favor? 7-0. Citizens open forum, is there anybody?
There wasn't anybody, just like 2 minutes ago or 3 minutes ago.
Okay. If now, forever.
Bingo.
Yeah, it's,
I mean, what?
guess there's not that many in here. Anybody want to speak? Okay.
Thank you.
All right, recognition of the presentations, none tonight, correct. I'm going to move it right along then. Consent agenda, the financial report and warrants, Danelle.
Our ending cash for the month of September, $4,546,902.32. Expenditures for the month, $1,821,113.31. Payroll, $396,544.52. Warrants for the month, $1,424,568.79. Checks that were over 10,000. State of Kansas, $945,145.87 bond payment. C, $146,021, our regular district payment. The City of Haven, $23,683.62, utilities. Dollar Mirror, $16,261, equipment. Summit Truck, $11,451.39, repair on bus parts and labor. Gray Roof, $16,590, and that was labor.
Any questions?
Was that for a number of buses or just one particular bus?
One bus, the one that we're discussing tonight.
Okay. And then did our utilities go take a jump? I don't recall them just being quite that high. I'm just asking a question.
I know they're always high when
Yeah.
we have air conditioners running in the summer.
So,
Yeah.
this
I
would
was
have
in
been,
summer.
yeah.
It was
It
hot
just
last
seemed a
month.
little bit long, or a little bit high.
Yes, it's just around 15,000-16,000.
Yeah.
In the last few years, so.
Yeah, we've had some high ones in the city.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. Principal director reports, those are in your drive. Maybe you should have been able to read those. Any questions on those for the particular directors?
We're discussing the buses later, right? If I understand.
What's that?
Aren't we discussing the buses later?
Yeah, yeah.
I did have one question, well, one kudos and one question. I did hear that the beef in, the local beef in the lunches, is she here? No, she's not here. Okay, no kudos for you.
He's watching online.
Yeah, okay, well anyway, the kids say the hamburgers are way better, so that's awesome. And then I just had a question for Laurel. I didn't know if you could elaborate on, you had mentioned in your report that the staff feels frustrated and stressed. I didn't know what, if you like have pinpointed what the cause of that stress is. I mean, I could think of about a million reasons, but I didn't know if you had any other additional information on that.
Well, quarantines have been a challenge. Currently, we have several meetings
test to stay, I think that's helped. We would have 3 full classrooms out. That brings an additional challenge. It's just, you know, like Mr. Weedle says, COVID is kind of an ever-moving target. And just the requirements of just one more thing. It's just always one more thing, so.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Clark, Superintendent Report.
Yeah, just a few things. First of all, I want to give you a cautiously optimistic report on the auditorium. I hate to bring it up, but I did get a report last week that the auditorium chairs were at least in the country.
They're off the ship now.
The United States of America.
I'm sure of it.
So I was hoping to receive confirmation that they were on their way. That was last week that they were in the country, but there were not confirmation about them being on their way to Kansas yet. So I felt a little better about that. The company that we ordered from does have a team that is prepared to put them in as soon as they have them. So, you know, originally the last date they gave us was the end of October, and so that's the date I'm feeling a little bit of optimism for. But I hated even to mention it because most of the time they come up short of what they promise. So that's one thing. The other thing is Rural Housing Incentive District. I don't know if you read the Clarion, but in the Clarion there is a public notice. I don't know if each of you got that notice or not, but if there is a copy of it. I do have a copy of it, but I wanted to make sure you knew what it says. There is a public hearing on October 18th, 7 p.m. at City Hall. And the purpose of that is to hear protests against the idea of housing out behind the building here. And if you remember, Rural Housing Incentive District means that closest to home is the school district will give up taxes for homeowners that choose to build out there for an undetermined amount of time. I've tried to get that number. They can't really tell me, but it's all based on how much money needs to be collected to pay for the infrastructure costs of a new housing addition out there. So anyway, I wanted to make sure you guys were aware. As of yet, I have not heard any of you that seem to have opposition towards that, but obviously on that date, the city will conduct that hearing, and that's the purpose of it, is to see if there's any objection for that process. And so really that's the school district, the city, and the county that would be giving up those taxes. So I want to make sure you had that date. You know, you asked a good question of Laurel here just a little bit ago. I don't know if I shared with you, but I was in a meeting at the Hutch Reno County Chamber meeting and with a bunch of business folks, and they were kind of saying how important kids being to school were. And we hear that every day. And obviously quarantines. And then you think about what are all our alternatives. I even said, you know, when we have staff members that are missing, limited subs to fill in for them, at some point in time you have to consider how long can we stay open. And nobody wants to hear that. You know, it kind of goes against the first part that I said, everybody wants their kids in school. And yet we got to be able to staff the school for that to happen. So I think that's some of the stress. I was in middle school and high school last Friday, and I noticed there were numerous classes where we didn't necessarily had a sub, so we had to do some combinations and combine some things. Teachers are subbing during their planning periods, and that is all goes to the frustration and the stress that comes with being in education during a pandemic. And it's not new news. It's just probably right now it's as challenging as it has been. You know, we thought about what we got through last year. Everybody thought this year was going to be better. This year hasn't been better. So yes, very many challenges that go along with that. Along with that, I do want to give a bit of a testing update, and we have our stars of testing with us today, and Becky and Judy. I just hate to think how much more frustrations would be coming at us without it. I was there Friday and I was there again today, and we're looking at 25 to 30 plus individuals that are coming in and going through our testing protocol, and thus being able to come to school. So it's working the way we wanted it to. You know, I think there were some question marks, is how many positive cases are we going to have, and is this going to keep people out of the building? And I guess my answer was, if we have positive cases, we do want to keep them out of the building. So this is an identity.
Score when they take the ACT when they're in high school. So I know there's 3 reports there, but any questions? I know it's going to be brief, but kind of overwhelming to look at.
Just looking at page 3, there's a lot of below. It doesn't seem to coincide with what's on page 1.
Well, so what I like to compare it to, or I help teachers look at, is, so if you're on math, so I'm on the math one. If we look there, we have a really big percentage in level 2. So that means we have a basic ability of our skills. That means we're missing a lot of skills. So then when you go over to page 3, you can see that with the negative signs. So that's where we have to go through and find in our curriculum and the things that we're teaching, what are we missing? What do we need to add? What do we need to be better at? What are students having a hard time understanding? So that's where we can pull that from to help us get those scores up. That's also, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Backing up just a little bit.
Okay.
The very first one there.
Yes.
Yeah, district is 12, state is 22.
Oops, hold on.
Now, is the lower number better or worse? I guess I'm not quite understanding.
You want your higher numbers to be in that third, number 3 and number 4. So yes, the lower the numbers in that first one, the better.
That's the
So we only have
Yeah,
12% in the
Okay.
red in grade 3,
Okay.
or at level 1. I'm sorry.
Okay,
So,
that's what I was,
yes.
trying to figure out. So,
So like if you look at 4th grade, we have 61% at level 2. So a majority of our 2nd graders are only at, or our 4th graders are at that basic level of understanding. So we need to look at what's going on in our 3rd grade curriculum and our 4th grade curriculum to see what they're missing.
What are, is our ideal, just to kind of match the state, or are there numbers that, that we would like to even, or ideally we would be even beyond the state's numbers?
We haven't talked about what those ideal numbers should be. But like I said, ultimately you want them to be in that 3 and 4 category. That's where we want them to be. That means that we're hitting all the skills necessary for them to be successful.
The state, and obviously
yeah.
there's, across the state appears to that,
Right, that level
that's
2.
not happening
Yep. So that's where, and I think that's a discussion all over the state as well, is how do you find what skills you're missing and how do you target those skills? So we're trying to do better at that.
I might remind you, these are state assessment scores that we gave last spring.
Oh, so these are,
Yes.
These were last year's.
They were last year's.
gotcha.
So usually, sorry.
Go ahead.
Usually when they take the state assessment, we don't get the scores until last year we actually got them at the end of the year, but you usually don't see them until the beginning of the next year.
Okay.
There was a great deal of concern across the state as what might these look like after a year of COVID, and after a year of remote learning and hybrid learning and in the classroom, out of the classroom. But I'd say, just listening to most districts, they felt like they were better than they might have been. If I had to answer your question, my goal for this would be for us to be above the state average.
But these would also be the state averages from last year, same time
Yes, yep.
Right.
Yep,
So it still gives us a bar
Mhm.
with what everyone dealt with to
yes.
some degree on where we're at.
And I might remind you, you keep hearing us talking about MTSS, and the purpose of MTSS is to find out where the kid's at, try to move them individually and collectively. So if you're wondering why we're doing MTSS, it's all about raising academic scores.
Part of that too, that goes with our state assessments, over here on the wall, we did just meet with our team to look at our new FastBridge data. We don't have all of it in and completed yet, but you can kind of look over there and see kind of where our kids are at reading, math, and we have social emotional as well. But it just kind of gives us an idea of where are our basic skills at. So now we're able to go in and see what they're missing, how to help them, and then we'll push them towards meeting the state standards for the state assessment. Any other questions on that part?
We are hoping that in November, we can bring you SEL data, social emotional data, shows where our kids are at from that standpoint as well.
All right, the next one is our ACT results. So that's this one with the graph. And again, this is just those 4 tests that are combined to see where our students are, to see if they're ready for college and career readiness. You can see on that first graph, our composite score last year, this past year was just a 17. So we've got a lot of things we can look at and use this assessment to help diagnose what skills are we missing in high school. What do we need to work on for these kids to make sure that they are prepared?
Did as many kids take the test though?
Sure.
What?
Last year on our, I think all juniors have to sign up for it. So I believe we had,
We had a good
Did we
portion,
have it?
we
Yeah.
had a few that did not take it, chose not to, but, we scored pretty low on it. Our composite was, I don't want to tell you a number, but, I would say it was below what I would think the state average was. So, I think the MTSS and FastBridge, all that will help us kind of have little formative assessments as we move forward towards that again, and towards state testing. I think it'll be good for us. So, I think we're in the right direction on our program.
Bill, that's a good question. It's interesting because if you remember years ago, who was taking the ACT? College-bound kids. Well, the state come in and said, we want to pay for it because we want a lot more kids taking it. And guess what happens when you do that? Sometimes your scores aren't quite as good because you have lots of kids taking it. And that's what we're looking for too.
And I mean, I think, you know, like there are probably students here that more of an agriculture background that they're not going to prepare because they know it won't make the, you know, kind of difference in their lives. And that's an assumption on my part, so I hope I'm not offending anyone by that. But
You're talking about the ACT test. I know that I had a user last year, I don't think we ever found out,
that you were taking it
or that, I don't know if she did or didn't.
or didn't get results.
Or didn't, we as parents didn't ever find out about it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if my junior didn't find out about it. And even going back to students before that, you know, my kids, I don't think any of them found out either about, now Kenny, I'll use his name, but I think he did find out about one testing, but it was when he had conflict and couldn't make it. So are we doing a good job of making sure these kids and parents know when this is happening?
ACT distributes directly to the student's address, I think, so it's It doesn't go through and filter through us, so once the test is taken, those scores will go out. Now,
No,
we'll get that.
even finding out when it's gonna happen.
Oh, yeah.
See, we never, so I know that I have 3 kids
Sure.
that I've never found out, except for the one when it was gonna happen in June while he was gonna be gone.
So maybe sending communication to parents about this is when the ACT will be, and you can expect results in this
Yeah,
time frame.
I'm
So
not as concerned about results, but if you can't take it, you don't have
right,
results.
right.
So I'm just wondering if we need to make sure that that gets followed through.
Okay, we can definitely do that. Any other ACT questions? Our last one for you is the post-secondary results. This is a percent of our high school students who either earned an industry recognized certification, they have the higher ed degree, or they continued their education for 2 years after graduation. So you'll also see on those dates, that's why we're behind, is because it takes a while to collect that data to show you. And then over there on the side just shows you our graduation rate, our success rate, and our effective rate. And again, we've seen improvement in that graduation rate, which you won't see on here yet because it's not caught up, but definitely making some improvements there. And our CTE staff and coordinator, she's doing a great job in making sure we've got those certifications this year. We're going through and making sure we add what we need to for the high school, so they're doing a really good job.
What is ESSA expenditures? Where it says on the right, bottom right, district ESSA expenditures per pupil. It has a description, but I didn't know if you know what that means because they're comparing our expenditures to the state expenditures. I can click here for state financial accountability.
Yeah, other than the dollars per student we spend.
That's what I'm
Based
guessing, but I
on
just
budget.
kind of curious.
I was trying to come up with what ESSA stands for.
And I feel like I have it on the top of my head, but I don't know. So I will get back to you on what that is.
Google that one.
And I think on that report, so it's also on our homepage, you can go in there and click on that as well, and it'll bring up all of that for you.
Yeah, she brings up havenschools.com. If you scroll clear down to the bottom, there's like a blue star, and that'll take all this data. As it's updated, it gets added.
I just feel like the state, you know, they get the watered down version of what's happening data wise at the state department level of education, and they're looking at that number determining our future budget is my thought.
Yes, and Laurel just helped me look that up. It's the Every Student Succeeds Act.
Gotcha, thank you.
Yes.
I just finished the big report and sent it into them, so I have to they have reports for like everything under the sun, so
Just federal accountability.
Yeah.
it's sending those numbers in out of our budget that we've completed last year, or obviously this one says 2018.
Mhm.
I'd say one of our challenges with this post-secondary effective rate is when you see 2018, you see a graduation rate of 89. I wouldn't call that our real Haven High School graduation rate because it includes another high school that we have, Haven Virtual Academy. And a lot of times our virtual students, they come for a year and then they're gone for a year, and sometimes they don't come back. And so that negatively affects our graduation rate. There is a way you can go in here and say, what's the graduation rate for Haven High School? It's always in the 92, 93, even up to 95% graduation rate. So Haven High School graduation rate is much higher than that. I've always kind of complained to the state about that, and I think the response I got one time is, well, are you getting money for the Haven Virtual School? But it does certainly affect this last report, having a virtual school.
Any other questions you might have on that?
And I would like to remind the rest of the board that last year, towards the beginning of the year, we got a report right after, the kids got out of spring break and didn't come back in person. They were behind, and this board still voted to make the children go remote. And so these numbers don't surprise me that we're still behind, because in-person education is very important for keeping our students caught up. So I think in the future, make that a priority in here.
On to the minutes from, there should be 3 sets, I guess. But the budget, revenue neutral, and the regular meeting that were in your drive. Any additions or corrections to those? And resignations, they're on the bottom of the agenda there. There's 2.
Yep, that's correct.
Industrial arts teacher and after-school program helper. So need a motion to approve the consent agenda. There's no other questions. Dustin, second. Jessica, all those in favor? 7-0. All right, on to action discussion items. First one, we'll have an executive session. Let's try 45 minutes, you think? And then we'll have people come and go. We have Jamie and Tracy for the first part of it, and then Danelle and Clark will come in later to finish it up.
After Danelle and I will have Travis and Jared come in.
Okay, so,
Danelle can leave and I'll
Okay.
stay with those 2.
okay.
So at 30.
So 45 minutes long enough?
Yes.
Let's try it anyway. Okay. I'll read the motion here. I move the board recess to executive session to discuss issues with current staff members pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception under KOMA. The open meeting shall resume at, what did I say, 45 minutes? It'd be 20 after? 7:20?
7:20.
So that's the motion. Is there a second? Ken, all those in favor? 7-0. All right, we're back in open session. Ready for item number 2, capital outlay expenditure planning.
Okay, so each year, early in the year, we try to have some conversation with you guys to maybe determine an approach, a direction for some capital outlay projects that might be on the horizon for us. So I'm looking there at the ones in blue. You know how some of you guys like blue and red together?
And down.
So 21-22 school year, and we've had this electrical upgrade on there for a couple of years now. You might notice that that dollar amount has gone up a bit, like double. And one of the reasons, and it was really an idea I think the city gave us, but I kind of liked it. So we wanted we really like to have a nice appearance out front there by the gym, and currently we have a big stand out there that's got a what's that device on top of it? Transformer. And so one of the ideas is to take that and move that across the parking lot to the tree row and kind of run some electricity underground as part of this project to increase service to our fields. If you remember one of our question marks, I don't even know if it's a question mark, when we built the football stadium, the electrical work, they hired an electrical engineer who said, we don't believe you have enough service, have enough electricity service to where you could run all three, the 2 softball fields and the stadium at the same time. And so we have always kind of kept that on there as something to get done. And so we'd like to consider that for this year. I'd say finally this year, maybe. And look into increasing that capacity out front there, but along with that, we would move that transformer to the other side of the parking lot and try to clean that area up a little bit. So that's the first one. The second one, you see a roof. If you remember last year, we had a company come in and help us come up with a kind of an overall list of our roofs and conditions. This is the one that they had helped us identify as the next one. This is the one that's on top of the ag shop and the industrial arts shop. I think we've patched it. It leaked in the ag shop for a lot of years, but that's the one that's probably in. You were here when we did the bond. You might remember, for those of you who are here, we did several roofing projects. One of those was kind of in the front of the high school. And if you remember, we have windows, kind of second-story windows that go around the library. The problem was those windows are pretty close to the roof, and so there's not enough space for them to take that roof and bring it upright and seal it properly. So they didn't warranty our roof underneath those windows. And at the time, and Bill, you might remember this,
It's expensive.
they gave us a dollar amount of $300,000 or $400,000 to replace windows and to move them up higher enough so that that warranty could cover that area too for the roofs. The rest of our roofing projects with the bond were all under warranty, but this little part is not. I don't know how Chris come up with this, but he had a vendor come in and said, hey, we can do that for you. And you see, I have a much different dollar amount. I used the word 300,000 or 400,000, and now we're in the 100,000 range. And if I remember right, that included some new windows that would sit up higher off of the roof. Did that also include the roofing to be extended up higher, or would that be in addition?
Then wasn't it like 70 or 80 for the windows, and then we put another 20 or 30?
I think that's the way I remembered it. I want to make sure we remembered it the same way. And so that seems to make a lot of sense for us to do a project where we could maybe ensure a better seal for the roof up there, as well as move those windows up a little higher, and it gets new windows in it as part of that. The last one in blue, you'll see HVAC upgrades. In just a minute, Carol will come up and talk about our ESSER 3 spending. And as you can see, we have a dollar amount of $400,000. Chris and I met with a mechanical engineering group today. What we've learned is to use ESSER funds for an HVAC upgrade. There's some hoops we got to jump through. And part of that is to get a professional analysis of what are our most needy, what are our biggest challenges from an air quality standpoint with our HVAC units. So and it doesn't always relate to age, but there seems to be a correlation to how old the unit is and how high quality of air it's producing. A lot of times it's about bringing outside air in, which can make that for maybe a safer COVID environment when you're bringing some outside air in. So you notice there are two other items on there that we haven't gone very far with. Tonight, what I wanted to do is just kind of show you what we're thinking and to see if there's any roadblocks from you. Typically what we would have to do is we would be bidding each of those projects, and then you guys would be approving any bids that would come in along those lines. So it's a bit of a process, but I wanted to show you what we were thinking in case there was any of you that just said, I really don't like that one, or hey, let's put that one off for a few years, or whether you thought these were maybe an acceptable use of our capital outlay spending. So I've got HVAC upgrades up there, but that wouldn't be coming out of capital outlay. That'd be coming out of our ESSER 3.
And the updating lighting to LED in progress, what is?
Yeah, that's how many years have you been doing that now, Chris? Three or four?
3 or 4. Ever since Ken's been on, because he's the one that brought it up. About 4 years.
Might just explain the process of how that
What
works.
we've really been doing, anytime lights like this go bad on us, we've been replacing them with LEDs.
Okay.
So pretty much when we replace it, we're using half, it's almost half of what the energy it was using before.
There are companies out there that you could just hire to come and do that for you in one swoop, but we've chosen this route.
Well, I guess the question I had, which this answers it, was because we talked about maybe bidding LED lights for the stuff again, or for the fields again. Just because prices seem to have dropped a lot, but then now everything's going back up. So.
Questions, comments?
I just know the fax room is on there for then we got into the locker rooms. I think we were kind of, so it's been a couple, 3 years ago, so.
Yeah, I've asked Dr. Moore to kind of come up with a scope of what all that might include.
'Cause that looks like it did when, in the 80s.
As the parent of a couple of grade school volleyball players, I can tell you that grade school gym is hot when you go in there.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up. When we had our meeting today with the electrical engineer, that's one of the items. The dollar amount they had with it was $275,000. So that would be a pretty big chunk of our ESSER funds.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the question mark. Do you want to take that one on?
Right.
When we probably have, we could do several more smaller ones. So I don't know what the right answer of that is, but.
Speaking of that, the volleyball net in there is dangerous. Have you ever heard anybody that's tried to put the thing up by themselves?
I have not.
Okay. I'll tell one of the staff members to bring it up and we'll get on this list.
Do we practice over there?
Middle school, high school now.
What's a rec?
But your third,
That's probably
fourth
true.
grade Haven grade school girls, all right, go Wildcats. They're there.
I think Mrs. Scott has some building budget she can.
My daughter actually wanted me to bring that up, so I brought it up.
Dustin
air
started it.
Yeah.
Or the net?
The air conditioning.
You said when you open this thing up, you just get all kinds of ideas.
That's right.
Help me out.
I would say we're getting dangerously close to spending our ESSER funds. We hope, and Kara, I'll just transition into her, but Kara's going to share what our application might look like, because we'd like for it to be one application. It's just, I think Danelle would appreciate it if we didn't nickel and dime her to death, but it's, we would hope that to bring it to you in November for an approval of our ESSER 3 funds. So that's where you can say, hey, eliminate those other HVAC units and do the gym. So that the rec can have air conditioning.
It's also where their PE is, right?
Well, it's hot, they go outside.
Sorry, I couldn't help that. Any questions, comments?
Consensus to go forward?
Yep.
Don't we? With those items?
Any of those
Bids.
projects are crazy, don't do them, or, like I said, you're really not totally approving them because they'll all have to be bid. Yeah, we'll have to. And I don't really have a timeline on it, I'd just kind of like to have a list of projects that
You
we,
get 275,000.
yeah. We're hoping it's
Yes.
less than we spent last year.
Yeah, but that would be.
Mhm.
Okay,
On the next one, winter weather considerations before we get to ESSER. Your transition is all set up too.
Wasn't quite ready to transition into there. I just wanted to visit with you a little bit about, I always get, it's not really my favorite thing to do is determine whether we cancel school or not. It's not quite as popular as COVID is, but it can be up there a little bit. But I just wanted to share a little information with you. First of all, each building does a daily attendance log. And so we have a requirement of 1,116 hours to be in school by building. And so I usually ask Brooke out here to find our lowest hours attendance center. And that happens to be at Yoder and Haven Grade. They're both the same number. And I wanted to let you know, and sometimes I don't even like to put this out because people think that we can cancel school because of this, but we build in about 7 extra days of attendance time. And I guess I would say, I kind of believe in that. I think that's what you ought to do. And so if you compare us to a lot of other districts, we typically don't go more than a lot of districts. Some of them were probably a little less than, but I just wanted you to hear that 7 extra days of 7 extra days of hours built in. Typically, one of the things we started doing in my tenure here is the consideration of late starts for weather. And as you know, last week we had our first late start of the year. That makes it maybe a little better option, is that parents maybe in some cases get used to it a little more, maybe not. But the late start buys us some time when it comes to weather-related issues. Many times it's daylight when we ended up running the buses, so that helps. And sometimes if we can wait another hour or so, that's helpful to make that decision. I always like to put it to you this way. It's a way to keep kids in school. If you go back to COVID, it's a way to keep kids in school. So if we can start 2 hours late rather than canceling, there's some value to that. Obviously, anytime we can make it a little safer, there's some value into that too. So I would still hope that you guys are okay with that that's still an option that we can consider as we go talk about winter weather. So remember that 1,116 hours, we have 7 extra days. We'll still consider late starts, and we'll see how soon this starts. I would say typically, I've got when I was hired here, there was a notebook given to me on winter weather, calling school, and it had a list of things. I don't even know who made it, but I can remember the last one says, "It's never wrong to cancel." Some of you might not like to hear that, but I would say this is something that can be a little stressful. As I made the comment one time, that decision only affects about 1,000 people. Just 1,000 people. And we have a lot of staff members that do drive in. I probably get a little more concerned about some of them than sometimes I do our drivers, because our drivers seem to be more prepared for that. Many times they handle that. Last thing I'll share is this occurred a few years ago. I may have had a bus driver get upset with me, maybe come in after we had school on a day when it was kind of a question mark. And the comment was made is, "You don't know what a bus driver goes through." And I remember thinking, there might be some truth to that. So ever since then, I don't make that decision without talking to the transportation director, because they know those. It was things like the windshield wipers freeze up, things like that. It's not like I don't drive. I mean, I do, but not a bus. So several aspects that go into that, and obviously you guys will get a kick out of this, because I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Districts do talk to each other. So when you see one cancel and all of a sudden they just start dominoing out from that, that's because we do talk to each other. And I would say that there is sometimes some pressure when everybody around you is closed. And I've often thought about that. Everybody around me is closed and I'm going to be open. What does that mean from a liability standpoint? Because I always think about those things. So there is some pressure sometimes by what happens around you. No big topics other than I wanted to give you a little bit of how the thought process works. It's right around the corner. Winter is almost here. 2 more months. Yeah. Questions, comments on school and winter weather?
All right. Now, the SS3 application. Karen here. She leave?
Do I have to
No,
do
there
the
she
whole
is.
thing? I thought you were going to start.
Yeah.
Okay, in your drive I put all of the things that we are planning to apply for. So you can read through that list. And then we've got kind of a leftover funds at the bottom of how much is left of the whole.
Need that.
Yes, we're gonna need that to put in our HVAC units. So we're thinking we're gonna move that, but quite a few of the areas are padded a little bit extra just in case we were to have, so say after school, what if we had more kids one year than we did another year? So we've got to make sure that we have the funds to pay all of our teachers that would work after school or transportation, things like that. So all of them are padded just a little bit just to make sure that we have the funds there to pay for everything that we want. So
I might just tell you, Chris and I met with electrical engineer, and they don't do this for free. So they will help us oversee us bidding our HVAC units and writing specifications. So they're going to be like almost like a construction manager from us, where they're going to get a percentage of the overall project. So that's why I told her I may need that $25,000.
You're a consultant.
Basis Engineers. Wichita?
Wichita, and then they were the engineers that did our whole bond too.
So what happens to the old HVACs? Like, is that selling them? Is that included in the 400,000 or?
No.
Because I imagine they would have some value.
You ever sold any?
They don't really sell.
Do they not?
They're pretty old. One,
Look at that.
especially what we're getting, well, all units we have spec'd out are R22, which can't really get that refrigerator anymore, so just not a real good sell.
So we'll have a better HVAC number for you next month, but we'll be coming looking for your blessing in November.
and all of these go to that final 20, is it 24, 25? Or 25, 26. So all of these positions will be paid for up to then with all of that. So
24.
I think it's 24, 25, if I remember right. There was 24, 25.
She might be right too.
I have it on a paper in there to make sure that we made it to the end. But do you have any other questions on anything that's on there?
Is that hotspot renewal?
Can I have Ken help me out? The hotspot renewal for all of our.
mobile hotspots for people that don't have that.
Oh,
Internet.
okay.
So John, in case we were ever to go remote again,
Might.
that's a bad word, I know. We want them to offer to families who might not have internet at home. And last time we did give some out, but we just wanted to stay contracted with that, so we have them.
Like there's also some use there with those, with our kids that are on quarantine and whatnot, that could take it home and still access, not remote learning, but access, Google Classroom or whatnot.
And you do have to have a certain percentage of this that does meet kids' what are we doing in the classroom for kids? So
I think they say 20% learning loss. Of course, our after school and our summer school, and even some of the technology meet that with. So.
Learning loss doesn't include teachers at all.
it's just an alarm. Sorry.
If you see the word up there, premium pay.
Well,
Oh,
yeah,
you're talking about extra.
Extra teachers from the email we got today.
Yeah. We'll check into that. Last I knew, that was a stretch, but I'll ask that
Good if
question.
they're short of teachers and they need to get kids caught up. It might being into, I don't know, interventionalist or something, taking out of that. I mean, it's in one hand and out of the other, but. Any other questions? All right, vehicle inventory report, Tracy.
Oh, you're fine. Okay, so I printed an inventory. We mainly wanted to focus on the minibuses and the big buses. So And it has the mileage and the years. There's 3 buses in particular that I put in my report that I wanted to discuss first. The first one is B22. It's the oldest bus in the fleet. It's 23 years old. It has over 200,000 miles on it. And we really haven't had much trouble with this bus since we've had it. But it's just getting close to being aged out because you can only drive buses for 25 years, school buses. So, and it's rusted and things like that when, buses get older. So, that bus is going to need to be replaced within the next year or so. The next bus is bus 35. It's 18 years old. It has 51,000 miles on it, excuse me. It has a really bad gear leak. So basically what happens is we put power steering fluid in it and it runs pretty much right back out. So there's no power steering. The former mechanic, Matt Hayden, has been looking for the part to replace that, and so has our current mechanic, George. And I've kind of tried to look around myself. We've been looking for 3 months for that part, and we have not been able to find it. So George said that he would try to rebuild it when he has time, but we have a lot of buses breaking down recently, so he hasn't had much time to work on that. So that bus is kind of sitting there because obviously we can't drive it because I tried to move it. Actually, I had to move it down to the other end, and that was a job. It was like an arm workout because there was like the power steering fluid went right back out. So it's definitely not something that I want anyone to drive for sure. So we're in the process of working on that because that bus is not really that old. So we'd like to be able to use it again. So the last bus is our major issue, and that's bus 47. It's our only international bus in the fleet. It was purchased, it's only 9 years old. It has 98,000 miles on it, and it's purchased in 2016. It was purchased for $50,582. It was used. And the district has spent $37,566. That's as of today. I added $432 to that today. It's been in the shop 3 times at Summit Truck. I spoke to the supervisor there today. I was kind of firm about it because I was like, we've spent a lot of money on this bus just this year, over 20,000 there. And it still has issues. So it doesn't have any power. George put a new fuel filter in it yesterday. He texted me last night because he works on the weekends a lot and said it didn't work. It's still not it doesn't have any power. So they're sending a mechanic out here tomorrow, Summit Truck is, because they want to try to do what they can to make it right if it's something they've done. I don't know 100% it's something they've done. This bus has had issues. It had an engine rebuilt. I have all the invoices here from since we've had it. So we spent a lot of money on this bus and it still has issues. So that is, and I have an unhappy driver right now because his bus keeps breaking down, which I don't blame him because since school has started, this is the second time that bus has had issues. So we haven't even made it through the first quarter. So anyway.
Is this his bus? This one you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, bus 47. So I don't have any experience with international buses because the district I came from, we didn't have any international buses. So this is my first experience with that particular manufacturer, so I'm not super impressed. But anyway, so I wanted to bring this to your attention because we've poured so much money into this bus and it's still not running. I don't have the budget this year to purchase a new bus, so I didn't know a new big bus. So, because we just got too many buses. So I'm not sure what to do about that. So, as you can see on the inventory, another thing I just wanted to point out, there's 5 buses that were purchased in the same year, 38, 39, 40, 41, and 42. They're 11 years old. They're all still in pretty good shape, but it's just in the future something to think about because that's 5 buses that are approximately the same age. So just want to keep that in mind.
And you said those time out at some point, you can't drive them anymore?
25 years.
25.
Yeah.
3 of those you just listed are listed as spares. And I know we talked about that.
Yes. Yeah. 3 of them are spares, and so I'm not using them currently on route, but they're being driven right now because 39 is being driven by my driver that actually drives bus 47.
They're the short buses.
There's shorter buses, that's another issue, especially with the driver shortage we've had. I have drivers that have longer routes, so therefore more kids on the bus. So we're needing to keep those longer buses going. So, and that's why actually bus 46 is getting a new transmission and she's in an activity bus right now because she has 60 kids on her route, so I can't put her in a shorter bus. So she's driving bus 44, which is an activity bus. So. Any other questions or comments?
Well, let the whole board know it was me that asked to have this discussion.
No.
Because I got the phone call.
He did, yes.
I had got
For my
the phone
unhappy driver, yes.
And I was not aware that we've spent this kind of money on this bus. I know that he's had some issues with it in the past. But those internationals are a pile of junk, those engines. The bus may be okay, but the engines are just, they're terrible. And if you look at what we spent on it in 9 years, that's a bunch of money.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I did ask Tracy, well, can we find the money to go get another bus to replace this thing? I know Clark looks at me cross-eyed, but
Well, let me just bring you up to date. I asked Tracy if you were going to replace a bus, which one would it be? And she said, bus 47. Obviously, she just gave you an update and said, well, bus 22 is going to age out soon. But I still said, if you had to pick a bus, which would it be? And she said, bus 47. So just to bring you up to date, last April, we approved $117,000 for 2, might have been more than just the 2 minibuses, might have been another vehicle in there as well. But the previous transportation director chose to purchase 2 minibuses, and I'm sure she had a really good reason for that. But we still haven't got them yet. Any day now.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
But, so that dollar amount that was improved in the spring was actually for this calendar year. So out of this fiscal year, capital outlay, we spent $117,000. So ultimately, that's the question. We typically budget $120,000, $130,000 a year out of capital outlay for vehicles. Pretty close to spending that already. And so ultimately, that's the question is, what do you want to do? Do you want to go buy another bus out of the same fiscal year?
Well, if you're looking to buy one, we wouldn't get it till next year anyway.
Right.
Are you saying we don't need those 2 minibuses that we got
No, we do.
No, I didn't say that.
We need those too.
Just don't drive your farm.
So how much money do you need for another bus?
It'd be close to 100,000.
Last one we bought was 95, 96.
I wouldn't, yeah, I wouldn't suggest, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I wouldn't suggest buying used buses. I'm not as experienced as I'm new in the transportation director, but just from talking to other transportation directors that have been around for a while, they suggested that we not buy used. So you're just inheriting somebody else's issues when you do that.
I mean, 100,000 is the cost of the windows. I think the bus would be more important than that, and then maybe put the windows off a year.
But are you saying you don't really need the short buses? Because you made the comment that for some, she decided that something.
She said immediately, no, we need those buses.
Yeah, we do.
There was no hesitation.
I'm just saying they're
Yeah.
probably worth more now than when you bought them. If you had sold those and bought them.
I wish she would have bought one of them being a wheelchair bus. We could really use another wheelchair bus, a mini wheelchair bus, but I wasn't here, so. But yeah, the two mini buses, we need those. So we don't have any, we have one spare, but it's not in the best shape. So, I mean, I have one spare mini bus, that's it. And sometimes they have needed them for activities and I can't let them use them because we're using them on route. So,
Well, I guess I would agree with John's statement that we're not in dire need of windows, but it sounds like we could be in dire need of a bus. So, no.
Just to play devil's advocate, we do have spares.
Well, yeah,
We have
that's
3
what
spares.
I don't understand about this sheet. Like, if we have a spare, then why are they spares and why aren't they subbed out for bus 47? I'm sorry for the nature of the question. I'm not trying to sound like a jerk.
No.
I don't understand. I just don't understand.
well, he is driving a spare bus right now, bus 39, but then I would only have 2 spare buses. And I have one bus right now that's sitting out there, that's been out there for over a week, and we're waiting for Kansas Truck to get the parts for the turbo, so he can't drive it. So he's also in a spare. That's what I'm saying. School buses, because especially our drivers drive a lot of dirt roads, and that wears and tears on the buses. So you need to have at least 3 good spares, because I mean, like right now I have basically 2 buses that are down. So technically I only have 1 spare really.
So bus 47, is it sitting?
Mm-hmm.
It is sitting.
It's sitting out there right now, yeah.
Can't be used as a spare.
No,
Because he doesn't have, I mean, he needs the power.
it doesn't go over, we can't hardly get it to get up to 55, barely, right now. I mean, they're gonna come out and look at it, but this has been an ongoing issue.
Right,
Yeah,
I'm not a fan of it, but I just,
yeah.
If you look at our
I
buses,
would, can we use it as, if they get it to move, can we use it as a spare? I would,
I mean, I suppose we could, but I just don't know how much more money that you want to put into it, you know what I mean?
that's why I say
That's,
park
yeah,
it. Get it to move, park it, and then
trade it in.
it's
That'd be somebody else's problem.
yeah, yeah.
But if you look at the mileage on some of our buses,
I didn't know you wanted to put more money into that, but
Somebody else's problem.
we're getting high on mileage on some of these buses.
yes,
And those are hard miles. They're not
right.
easy highway miles.
So do we want to get a bid for a bus and find out how much it'd be at trade, or?
I don't think we're gonna do the vehicle for a long time.
Okay, how long?
Yeah, I know, that's what I'm saying. Saying we can bid it now, and it's not gonna come out until next budget anyway, probably, before we get it.
I mean, I don't do semi. I had a guy tell me, he put in his order in January, and they just called him and said, well, it went up 30 grand from when he
Yeah.
bought it.
Mm-hmm.
Plus,
That's
I don't
another
get it
thing.
till next year,
Yeah.
so that's a year and a half out.
Mm-hmm.
If you order after November 1st, they did say the prices are gonna go up.
Yeah,
$10,000 at least.
at least.
Yep. So.
No pressure.
I wasn't gonna say that, but since he said that, then I was like,
Those
well.
kind of things just irritate me, and I hate how people try to pressure you into doing things.
Yeah, I'm not trying to
based on
pressure, I just
salary,
brought it up
based on
because,
cost.
yeah,
Those kind of things just
Yeah.
tick me off.
Well, it's free to get quotes and,
Yeah.
yeah,
and what the lead time is, right? So
yeah, that's
I
free.
don't see any harm in doing that.
I agree.
No,
Yeah.
I agree totally, it's just, you can't trade bus 47 in. It's not like a car, I don't know, I don't deal with school buses.
I would have to check, cause I'm not 100% sure on that. I've not heard of trading in buses, cause most districts,
Purple Wave.
yeah, sell it on Purple Wave and
There's gotta
then
be
they
some
buy
out there
new.
somewhere. I mean, we bought used buses before.
Yeah, and that's where I think this one came in, was a trade-in.
Because it had problems.
Yeah.
Somebody.
That's what.
Exactly,
Yeah.
that's, yeah. Which is why I would rather not buy used again.
Yeah, I would like to at least see us get a bid on it and see what kind of price we get.
And seeing if they accept it as a trade too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Why didn't get hurt?
see if they say 0 or $100, well, we can get more than that out of
Right.
Purple Wave.
Purple Wave, yeah.
Because that thing will bring probably $2,000 on Purple Wave, so we know at least that.
So I guess that's consensus. And
Yep.
Go ahead and get a bid. And
Okay.
Do we want to bid air conditioning or? That was the question last of us.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and I had spoke with a previous director, not the one, anyway. And that previous director said there used to be a deal where they would purchase one activity bus a year and it was air conditioning, and then eventually all the buses were gonna be air conditioned, but then all that changed. But I'm just saying that because someone said something about air conditioning, so I don't know.
I guess
I pushed
Get it-
air conditioning
get it
last
both
time,
ways.
yeah.
get it both ways. I mean,
Get it
them
both
the bid
ways.
and if
AC
we
and no
want to-
AC.
We can always delete it if we.
Yeah.
Private line.
Hot tub.
They have that. They had a really interesting.
Don't bid that.
Yeah, they had an interesting bus though at the conference over the summer. That was, yeah. Any other questions?
No, I think.
I'll see what I can find
Okay.
out.
All right, maybe some more good news this time. Number 6.
Symmetry, if you're not familiar with that term, that is our Kansas Gas, or was our Kansas Gas provider. It's actually through KSB. If you remember, we had a huge bill back in February. There was a little conversation about, do we join a lawsuit that KSB organized. This is an interesting deal. You left that up to me. I chose to pay the bill and not join the lawsuit. Here recently, the lawsuit came to fruition, and I got a call back from KSB that said, hey, so you in or out? And I said, why, we've already paid our bill. I didn't sign your agreement to join the lawsuit. And they said, well, we went ahead and the lawsuit was in the name of all districts that were involved in it, so you can still get involved. Well, until I found the dollars, figured out what the dollar amount was, I wasn't quite sure what was in it for us. Okay, so the settlement for our district is between $15,000 and $16,000. The cost to join the lawsuit's about $700. I said, yeah, I think we're in. I've got a board meeting Monday night. How about so anyway, Yeah, that's the way that worked out. I ended up talking to the guy from KSB, and he said, yeah, he says, well, I know your payoff between 15 and 16, and I checked today to see what the bill would be to join the lawsuit, and they quoted me approximately $700. So it feels kind of like a no-brainer that it's time for us to get in, and even when we said no originally, they still want to make us some money. So I'd recommend we jump into
How much
that.
was the original bill, 34?
Yeah, our bill was 32, I thought, 32,000 for 1 month.
Mhm.
We get about half of it back.
Be nice. We need to pass a motion.
We gotta take official action.
I would like somebody
Sign the
to
agreement.
make a motion for that.
I'll make
Ken,
Either one of those.
Paul, okay. All those in favor, right hand. What do you know, 7-0. All right. Approve contracts and work agreements.
That's another good news deal. That's a new custodian and 2 new bus drivers. So anytime we're hiring those 2 categories, it's a big night. And I wouldn't say we're home yet. We're still short, but we've come back a little ways. So obviously recommend to hire those.
Okay. So we need a motion on the work agreements for Mark Leonard and Mike Valdois and Teddy Smith. Is there a motion to
One motion.
Dustin? Chris, second. All those in favor? 7-0. All right. Number 8, Jessica.
As-
COVID quarantine, I should say.
Yep,
I guess.
COVID quarantine. As it was brought up earlier, I know staff are stressed, and I don't know that I want to talk about this any more than anyone else does, but pretty sure we've all been getting emails and things from parents, and I became quite frustrated with it and talked to Clark a little bit about it, and I don't know that the issue really, I didn't really think that the issue was our issue to be had. You know, I way understood it was kind of a Reno County thing in dealing with how we're handling quarantines, but it seems to me it's happening repeatedly. I know some kids have been in quarantine 3 times, and you know, our duty is to make sure these kids are getting education, and so of course we want everybody to be safe when they go to school, but it seems to me that this is kind of getting out of hand for at least some, maybe more than others. But I wanted to share a little bit that I had found out about today. First of all, one of the things I said to Clark is, it seems to me that parents should not be sending kids to school when they are sick. And I don't know what in the world we can do about that. I suggested maybe we send a mass text message out to everybody. I'm sure that people already know, but that is one of the issues. I'm not suggesting we have to come up with a solution tonight, but I don't understand why parents would be sending sick children to school. We didn't do that before. Well, I'm sure it happened, but seems to be a problem and part of the problem. Not sure what to do about that. That's one issue. Secondly, I know we've had some outdoor events that were considered exposures for close contacts, and I had found another district, USD 232 in Kansas, which is DeSoto, has a policy against, or I don't know if the policy, but somebody shared with me something quickly before the meeting. I haven't had a chance to look at it, but I'd like to consider looking at something to address outdoor exposures if they're.
So I don't know. I don't know the details on all of those things as to why people aren't there. If they've also tested positive, but without, again, being too judgmental based on their ability to get here to test, or how, if that's something they're unwilling to do or unable to do, or if that would be in some way something we could address to help them, or again, we've kind of put that as just an option that. In 20 minutes, we were in and out, knew our results, and on we went. But so that's one thing that maybe we could promote more, talk about, or tweak to figure out how that could be an additional benefit.
They can do that on the first day after exposure, right?
So they go home the day of the next. That's as soon as it was available, we went the next morning and boom, took her right over to school.
Have you heard anybody that's aware of that and still has issue? Because I don't understand exactly, other than like getting there to test, I don't understand what the
Yeah, I mean,
problem still is.
I don't know what, is it just parents that can bring kids to be tested, or is there a way that grandparents or?
Well, we have to have consent from the parent.
So the first time a parent would need to come, but after that, it could be another relative or.
Anybody.
Okay. That was one of my questions, which that,
Mr.
hopefully.
Weedle sent out all the consent forms earlier, so some parents signed it right away.
Yeah.
And either have scanned it, emailed it back to us, so they've already had it. So even if we had a student who, we had, even today, we had parents coming in and signing for several students that they had in our building who may or may not have already been quarantined, but hey, I want my kid to be able to do this right now. As soon as they need to, we can do it.
Yeah.
And for that matter, we tested today in the class when we found out. We don't wait till the next day. We tested today.
Oh, okay.
And so, yes, we set up from 7 to 8 for testing, but I'm there all day long.
Okay.
And I tested all day long.
Okay.
If we need to test we just went over to the grade school and tested. If that's what we need to do, that's what we'll do.
So the only way somebody would have to be quarantined is if they couldn't get to the school to take the test, refused to take a test, or tested positive.
Correct.
Or if they were, far enough away that whatever reason they couldn't manage to get in or get back home if they did test positive. Which to me is still far less inconvenience than having to figure out who to stay home with for 10 days. Or, if you have someone who can keep them for 10 days, my hope would be you'd have someone who could bring them and do that. Maybe not. But
do you feel like there's still people that aren't aware that that's available now, or I guess I don't see
It's fairly new because Nathan had COVID last month, and I think I mentioned this before. I kept him home when he was sick.
Yeah, up to this point, it's been really challenging.
And so there was no quarantine because he wasn't at school when he had it. Parents need to keep their kids home when they're sick.
Sure.
But barring that, you're right. We've got home rule authority here. We're not under an emergency order, and so we can do whatever we want with quarantine. We can say only kids that are sick, only kids that test positive. We don't have to cooperate with contact tracers. We've got 100% authority as far as what goes on in the school, and we've chosen to follow the Reno County Health Department guidelines. I think we had this conversation last year, and I was kind of pushing back against that because we don't do that with the flu, we don't do that with the cold. And COVID sucks. I thought I was gonna die. I had it for 3 weeks and almost was in the hospital. But chances of children getting sick with it and dying are statistically zero. So it's.
Well, we do have a teacher in the hospital, or we have had, and that's another layer to think about. Because I agree with kids. Statistically, they're gonna get it, they're gonna deal with it, they're gonna move on. But there's also that additional responsibility to consider them as well, and yeah.
And you do have children that are immunocompromised.
Yeah.
So you're right. Probably 90% of the kids are going to be fine.
Yes, absolutely.
You're just talking about the other kids that aren't, or the teachers, or the paras, and everybody.
Yeah.
So they're the ones you want to protect.
Yeah. Yeah, I know an immune-compromised child in this district who, fought to keep the fever under 105. It was a concern for a few days, and so we want to be aware of those things as well.
Any more comments, discussion? Want to revisit it next month, or?
And I will say too, the test at home is like what, a week and a half old.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
it has just happened. So
Yeah, I can see that being messy for us later, so.
What do you mean?
If, a bunch of kids start testing positive, then that's just gonna, exponentially increase the quarantines. I don't know, that's my concern.
They have the option to get a PCR test if they do test positive, and that gives them 6 months of protection that they would not have to quarantine as well.
And obviously, when you call them, tell them they're close contact, you tell them about the program.
We
So
offer
really,
it
everybody
immediately,
should
yes.
know that's affected by a quarantine.
And if they do catch it.
Today we were
they
able
would
to
be-
keep almost a whole class in.
Right.
All day. And the two that weren't, it was the transportation issue, one of them's out of district. And that's what it was for one of them. I think that's pretty awesome. And just seeing how COVID has gone through the grade school, between students and staff, I mean, you can see it moving through close contacts. And it's tough to say it, but what we're doing is working. And I know I know quarantines are terrible, and I hate to know that how many of our kids have missed out on a significant portion of the school year, being this is the end of the 9 weeks. But if someone tests positive because they're doing this test to stay, and we can say, hey, you need to stay home for a few more days, and now you have to go home even though you've been in school up till now, I think that's awesome, because that's one less kid that's spreading it around. And it's bad. I mean, every day I think about it. Who am I gonna get a call from? Am I gonna get a call this weekend? I don't even wanna check my emails or answer my phone. Because it's frustrating, I know parents are frustrated, staff are stressed, but I think this is the best option that we have to be able to keep our kids in school and learning, and I think that's the most important thing.
Can they get a test somewhere else if they are out of district or like an urgent care? Because most health insurance will pay for tests. I mean, is that an option under our current program, or is that something we can make an option?
I'm gonna say it's not listed that way under our current plan.
What are thoughts on that?
I don't have a problem with that, but I think they still would have that transportation issue of getting them somewhere, and then if they're bringing them to Haven, at least that much closer.
Well, my
to
thought
school.
was, parents saying, well, I don't want to drive all the way down there if I'm just going to have to drive them back, whereas I can just go to the urgent care and then see, and then.
I think you can get,
this fast?
you can get them fast. You can get them in 15 minutes. Becky, in the Walgreens, is where you can't go to like to the emergency room or urgent care usually, do you?
Yeah, urgent care, I got my results in 15 minutes.
I don't know if they're still doing them though, but I know the clinic still has it and some of those like Prairie Star. But yeah, you could call Walgreens and you can get a test, and I guess if they brought the results of the test, that's all we need. It doesn't matter that we do as long as we see the results.
We'd have to worry about them getting on the bus first, though.
They
I mean,
cannot.
so we would need to see the results before they.
Yeah, they can't ride the bus till we see a negative test.
Right. Because that would be the issue.
But they
right.
could fax it or email it.
Right.
Heck, the urgent care will fax it or email it, I guarantee it.
Yeah.
So do we have to take official action to approve that then, or?
What are we approving, I guess,
Let somebody outside testing.
Would it have to, the way we're doing it now, the test has to be that morning.
Yeah, and you couldn't have it the day before. It'd have to be that day.
Why couldn't you do it the day?
Quite honestly, I've been doing COVID testing for a year because I worked in long-term care. We had to test twice a week. So I had a girl come in, she said, didn't feel good. I tested her, she was negative. 6 hours later, she was positive. You're gonna wait till the next day? I mean, at least we know when they walk in, they're negative. At the end of the day, they may be positive. You don't have any way of knowing that.
But at least it would give parents like that are in Hutchinson or Mount Hope or something another option before they.
Yeah. I don't see any.
That's why I voted for the test to say was to give parents options.
And I don't think they're gonna, I really don't think they're gonna have a better option than coming here if they wanna go to Walgreens and get a test, but they're gonna be better off coming here than if the kid's negative, just go to school. But you're right, there'll be some that if they're positive, they'll have to leave. But then they're gonna wanna go somewhere and probably get a PCR anyway. So, you know.
I just figure options are better if you guys are okay with that.
I think his point is the parent that can't take off work to bring their kids to school that morning.
Mhm.
You know, if they can the evening before.
No, it has to be that morning.
Well, that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Because you want them on the bus?
Well, we're saying you'd have a negative test before they would get on the bus.
From the day before.
And I understand what you're
Yeah.
saying about that there's the case where sometimes they test positive later, I understand.
I don't know, I think that's the way it's written, Becky, isn't it?
I'm a little confused.
That they have to be negative, they have to have a test that morning to ride the bus that evening.
I don't know.
That's
that-
our current policy, is what you're saying.
Right.
I don't know that I'm necessarily against them having it elsewhere, but I think I would feel fairly strongly they should have it that morning.
Right. Which that's what I was saying, but.
Yeah.
Just if they, yeah, just be.
They don't have to come to school. They
Right,
could.
just like, you know, like, I mean, because I live in Hutchinson and, you know, driving all the way down to Haven and then getting a test and having to go back, I mean,
You can just do it there.
I could just do it there.
Okay, you're good.
Yeah.
And I think we'd want to make sure it was a healthcare professional, not like an in-home test or
Right.
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But somebody else signed off on it.
We would wanna make sure of.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that, I don't think.
So is there, would that be possible? Could they go somewhere at 6 o'clock in the morning and get it from a healthcare professional and then have time
I'm
to
just
go on the
looking for
bus?
options.
Yeah.
I think that's.
Well, I'm
the
just
point.
wondering if we're talking about something that is.
I think
impossible.
Prairie Star opens at 8 and then.
I mean, they
don't
may
know
get
if
there a
they-
little
I mean, there's
I
places.
I don't quite see them riding our bus that morning, but
Well, that would be the only issue we're trying to fix right now. Because right now, if they can get to school, they can take the test, and there's no reason to take it anywhere else. At least I don't see it.
Yeah, if you're gonna put it on a bus driver to read a proof positive or negative test, I mean, that's a little,
No,
I don't like that.
Yeah, we don't want that.
So,
But if it helps-
Kind of my thought was, you know, okay, Nathan feels fine. I go take him to Prairie Star at 8 o'clock. He's good to go. Then I can tell my boss, hey, he's okay to go to school. I've just got to bring him.
Yeah.
Whereas, as
it
opposed
might,
to.
I don't know whether it'll work or not, but it might be an option.
Yeah.
yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
I guess it's up to the parent. how-
Yeah.
how-
I just figured the more option we give parents, the better.
So we need to vote, since that's in the policy, to have that changed.
Already right there, but go for it.
Or even like, you know, other school districts are part of this. Would it be okay to get a test in another district if they happen to live closer to another school?
Your CLIA waiver usually restricts you to who you can do tests for. And I believe ours restricts us to
Just our students.
just our
and staff.
students and staff. You can't do outside.
Okay.
So do we need a motion to say we need, if they have it, if they have-
That might wrap it up a little
Yeah.
better.
just to say if they have a test that morning done somewhere else by a health professional, we're okay with that and they can bring that to school? I'll make that a motion.
One second.
Okay? Yes, I've made it and John seconded. All those in favor? It's 7-0. All right. Done with action items. Reports. Jen.
We had a very short meeting,
What's that one?
10 minutes. Basically just business, but I did ask the question, how are we staffed? I think they have 8 para positions yet to fill, and most of them would come down here.
It's something that's a problem for us. I can assure you of that.
And we're trying to fill those positions. I know we had a few resignations on other things, psychologists.
Can we blame you for that staffing shortage?
Yeah.
As a board member over there?
Okay. No, it's,
Yeah.
we're trying to fill, and they were planning to have some interviews last week, so I don't know where those came out at. but they did have some applicants. So we're trying to fill those positions. That's about it.
Okay. All right, board member reports. Jessica, let's start with you. I know you've got some KSAB stuff.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that was not on the agenda. Just Clark put some information in the drive for you to look at for the KASB voter guide. Thank you, John, for being the only person that didn't throw me under the bus last time when I was not here.
I will say I was just an outvote because I was here. I abstained because I thought you ought to have a decision better.
I'm the delegate for that and have been for quite some time. I was hoping to get out of it this year, but anyway, I think there's some information in there, and I wanted Clark to put in that. Normally it's just very basic information, but there are some controversial topics in there, which we all love. Controversial topics this last couple of years. So I don't know if anybody has any feedback or input. I can bring them up briefly, or if you already have looked at them and you don't have anything to say, I'll just vote however I think that we should.
Everybody have a chance to look those over?
I agree.
I didn't look either.
How about I bring up the one that I would just ask for if there is any input, and that is, there's one that either says that KASB should have authority to make decisions concerning health emergencies such as COVID-19 pandemic, or KASB believes that the public health emergencies should be determined by state and local officials. Do you have an opinion on that? If there are none,
I would think state and local is better.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that.
okay. I figured that's the way we would go, but that was probably the most controversial.
I figure if you look at any of those, you can probably tell what my opinion is.
Okay.
Dustin?
I'm good, thank you.
John?
Well, guys, I am officially moving as of tomorrow, so it's been a pleasure. You know, we've had our disagreements, but I think we've always been on the same page as far as trying to do what's best for the students, and I'm very amazed that I've gotten a lot of cooperation the last couple of weeks. I think you guys are just being easy on me. So, but it's been a pleasure, and you know, my kid will be here until December, or well, until Christmas break, so thank you for that, Clark. And then, you know, plan on already being moved by now, but like I say, my second round of COVID, because I had it once before. I mean, I thought I was going to die. I wasn't this close from going to the hospital, but I knew if I went to Hvac, I didn't think that I would make it out. So, but so I mean, it sucks, but you know, I survived. I can breathe again, and I'm better. And so, but it's been a pleasure getting to know each of you, and you know, and I'll be out of your hair for a little while. But one thing I will encourage is continue to ask questions. That's, I think, one thing I brought to the board was, you know, asking lots of questions just to gain clarification. Not necessarily because you're against anything or because you are trying to influence anything, but you know, I think the more information that we gather, the better decisions we can make. So.
Okay, thank you, John, for your service.
Thank you.
It's kind of a thankless job sometimes. You came in at a hard time too. So I really don't have anything. Chris?
Yeah, I'd just say that, you know, I know that we have to make decisions that are difficult to make, and we're gonna kind of rub each other the wrong way and disagree at some point, I'm sure, but I just wanna say, you know, for me personally, I'm, you know, glad I'm working with you guys. I know that from your perspective, you have the best interest of people at heart, and from my perspective, I do as well, and at the end of the day, you know, I want us to all be able to work together and still be friends when we see each other outside of these decisions, and you know, I just hope that continues to be true. So, and thank you guys all across the board for all of the difficult things you do in whatever area that may be.
Paul? No? I didn't
Well-
skip you this time.
Actually, here, John, you made it out.
Okay.
The auditors asked me, I laid this piece of paper on your desk. And I need John, Dustin, and Jessica to fill it out, so I can send it back. So this is, we need this to complete our audit. The only other thing we've got, I mean, I'm thinking none of you really wanna go to the KSB conference, cause nobody's.
Overland Park, isn't it?
Said anything to me, so. Other than that, but I do need these tonight, please.
Okay.
I know I don't get another report.
Well, you're on the clock now.
Everybody all right with this advertising John's position? You don't have to add, I mean, we stay at 6, but
Oh,
we typically do advertise the position. Try to get it.
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there with a lot of opinions.
Try to, there's every time. One of those.
Yeah.
yeah.
We'll do so. Bring you several candidates next month.
So the timing on that, would that be real next month? It probably has to be a month later, doesn't it?
Yeah, we have a certain amount of time, we have to put it in the paper, I forget the timeline, but it would fit into potential interview next month.
It's not been December. Okay. All right. Ken got my job. Motion to adjourn by Ken, second. Paul, all in your favor?
Yeah.
7-0.
You did, you're good.
There's all that stuff, and then that's kind of my tentative.
Right.
I don't know, I couldn't believe I had 5 there.